I was born in the year of our Fresh Prince, 1990, which places me smack dab in the middle of the qualifying age range to be a part of the Millennial generation, those born between 1980 and 2000. Now, there's many different nicknames for my generation. There's Generation Y, Generation Me, Echo Boomers, but for those who want to get real creative, they tend to use this little moniker. The worst generation. Yeah. See also, the worst generation ever. Yeah. Nice and subtle, no? Clearly, there's a lot of people out there who don't carry a very high opinion of my generation. I mean, what did you think of when I first said that word, millennial? Well, if you're like many researchers, writers, psychologists, and other talking heads, that term likely doesn't carry a very positive connotation. You likely conjured up images of tattered man buns, photoshopped selfies, and savage memes with no chill. You likely think of a culture that's given birth to keeping up with a certain plastic surgery-obsessed reality TV family and twerking pop stars with their tongues out. Leaked nudes, celebrity Snapchat scandals, fake followers, Twitter trolls, all of these things are the unfortunate and ugly hallmarks of what it means to be a part of our generation. We're viewed as narcissistic, entitled, and overly sensitive. We ask for too much but deserve too little, people say. We'd rather be famous than be kind, and we're more interested in receiving dick pics than we are in receiving diplomas. Yes. In the minds of many, we're the generation that expects to have its cake, eat it too, but only, of course, after putting it in the perfect lighting, taking a picture on our phones, uploading it to Instagram, and hashtagging food porn. Nice. It's worst. Clearly, this is a less than flattering depiction of what is the largest age grouping in American history. There are currently over 80 million millennials in the United States, which makes up an entire quarter of our country's population and is now the demographic that is dominating the workforce. Now, you'd think, well, okay, if nothing else, at least we're the biggest, we're the baddest, right? Well, not so fast. More millennials actually live at home with their parents than any other generation in American history. That's right, more than a third. 32% of millennials age 18 to 34 come home from work or from school to a stocked fridge and free Wi-Fi, and the only rent they pay is helping mom and dad work the Apple TV. Okay, now let me make this clear. I don't mean to be too harsh to millennials because, like I said, I am one. And what's more is, what might surprise you is I'm actually a proud millennial. You might even go so far as to call me a millennial advocate. That's how passionate I am. Why? Well, first of all, it's because I don't subscribe to these caricatures of my generation that I've just talked about. Sure, they might get a laugh, but I don't think they're anywhere near indicative of who we actually are. I think these are very surface level stereotypes. And like any stereotype, you'll find some who fit the bill perfectly. And I'm sure there really are plenty of millennials out there who really do spend the bulk of their day fighting in YouTube comment sections and asking people to catch me outside. How about that? Okay? But here's my question. Why are those the millennials that get to become the poster children for my generation? Because as hard as society tries to label millennials as whiny and unmotivated, this is far, far from my experience. I maintain that the negative attributes been given to millennials are all part of just one big misunderstanding. This perception that millennials are selfish and effete is really just a skin-deep analysis when there's a much deeper and much more positive reality at the core. All you've got to do is look past the surface to see that millennials are actually changing the world for the better because our positives are born from our perceived negatives. Here's what I mean. For example, what many see in us as narcissistic is also just a supreme confidence in our abilities, the kind of confidence that allows us to start our own company, become the CEO of that company, the kind of confidence that drives us and propels us to think we can create an app that will disrupt an entire industry. Another one, what many people see in us as entitled, is also just a natural expectation for success. The natural expectation that we don't have to work in an office 9 to 5 in order to make a living. And if we do, then we expect that office has 3 different lunch menus, video game break rooms, and nap pods for when we need to take a nap. I mean, I've been to Google, I've been to YouTube headquarters, I've seen these things, and they exist because millennials exist. I'm confident I could assign each one of the negative characteristics that my generation's been given, such as more selfish, more arrogant, more entitled, as a direct result of a generation that's also more creative, more free thinking, and more innovative than any other generation before us. And sure, we might have some bad habits, but really, these are just natural side effects of the world that we live in, and they shouldn't overshadow the fact that millennials are pushing the world forward. See, with millennials, the positives far outweigh the negatives, but where people get confused is that these positives and these negatives are inseparably connected. Basically, everything we're not makes us everything we are. And it's not as if I'm going out on a limb here, going against all the research that seemingly goes to show how terrible millennials are. There's plenty of research that backs up what I'm saying, research that shows that yes, millennials are very self-concerned, but we're also just as interested in looking outward as we are inward, and we're just as concerned with social impact as we are with social status. In the 2016 Millennial Trend Report, 90% of American millennials said that they believe they could make a difference, they could make an impact in their country. And nearly 2/3 of those millennials had used social media in the last week to post about a cause that they were passionate about. This is just one way our generation is making a difference. We are cause-focused, cause-oriented social activists and entrepreneurs who are using technology and the globalization of the internet to create change. So yeah, we may be addicted to looking down on our phones, but it's what we're doing on those phones that matters. That's what's important to take into account. There's also plenty of research that goes to show that millennials aren't the superficial and materialistic consumers that many think we are. In fact, it's just the opposite. Over 3 in 4 millennials say that they would rather spend their money on experiences rather than stuff. Likewise, millennials are 23% more likely to travel internationally than those from previous generations. See, this memories over materialism attitude has created an entirely new industry, what's being called the experience economy. As millennials, we want to become embedded in new cultures, go on unique adventures, have unique experiences, try new food, meet new people. And so companies are popping up left and right to fulfill this demand for these unique experiences that we as millennials crave. This is all a byproduct of our generation of adventurers and world travelers who, want to go document it all on our Instagram and Snapchat. We want to travel, we need to travel. Give us the time off, give us the vacation days to do it, or we'll go find somewhere that will. Now for me, this is all just further confirmation of something that I've already known and I've already witnessed firsthand. Because when I think of millennials, I don't think of some pop culture sketch of the worst of the worst. You know what I think of? Real millennials. I think of the millennials, people that I know my age, people I've talked to, people I've met firsthand who show what it's actually like to be a part of our generation and not what society labels us as. When I think of millennials, I think of my new friend, Michelle Cerna, who you just met. At 19 years old, she is responsible for curating today's entire TEDx event. She's already given 2 TEDx talks herself, her first one at TEDx San Francisco, which is a huge event every year, and her second one, the day after graduating from high school, Michelle flew to Europe and gave her second TEDx talk in Austria. That is a millennial. That's a typical 19-year-old. Those are the 19-year-olds I know. When I think of millennials, I think of my friend BC. BC grew up in Denver, Colorado. He received the opportunity to go on a study abroad trip for 6 months that put him in a group of 100 different kids from 25 different countries. And he said this experience opened up his eyes and instilled in him a passion for travel and for world experience. And so BC went back home to Denver after this trip and started getting involved in his community and giving back by mentoring young African-American youth and crowdfunding, setting up GoFundMe pages so these kids could then go on their own study abroad trips to gain that world experience, to gain that passion and broaden their horizons. That's a millennial. I think of my friend Clay Olson. Clay, when he was in college, started a group with a bunch of his friends, and they called that group EDGE, E-D-G-E, which was an acronym for Entrepreneurs Dedicated to Great Endeavors. And the only purpose of this group was just a bunch of guys to sit around and talk ideas, ways that they could make an impact on the world, business ideas. I mean, who other than millennials would do this, right? But from that group, Clay had an idea that led to him dropping out of college, starting a grassroots nonprofit campaign dedicated solely to raising awareness on the science and the research on sexual exploitation in society, pornography, human sex trafficking. Fast forward to today, that's still Clay's job. He is a college dropout who is now the CEO of this worldwide nonprofit organization that he started that is making a huge dent in this global issue. That's a millennial. When I think of millennials, I think of myself. 3 years ago, I was a kid in college. so frustrated, so restless, because I knew I didn't belong in an academic world. I had so much passion for my ideas, so much passion for my own personal creative endeavors. And so at one point in college, I had a product idea. I had an idea for a pair of headphones, marketed and designed specifically for endurance athletes, marathoners, triathletes. My dad's a 6-time Ironman, so this is something my family's very into. And I had one very specific company I wanted to pitch it to. So I spent 3 months in my university library putting together this presentation. I would skip my classes just to go work on this personal project of mine in the library. And I photoshopped and I designed what these headphones would look like. And I did all the market research of the electronics industry and whatnot. And this was all before I even knew I could get a meeting. I mean, have you ever tried to cold call a $500 million company and tell them you want to pitch them your idea as a college kid? It's not easy. But I was persistent. I kept calling, I kept emailing. I eventually got in. I found myself standing in a conference room in front of 2 senior directors at this company. And I gave my pitch. And I'll just be honest with you, I crushed it. Yeah, went amazing. It went amazing. One of them brought me aside afterwards, and he said, I've been doing this for 25 years. What you just did was awesome. I'd love to talk about bringing you on board. Pretty cool, right? Well, nothing actually ended up happening with that experience, as life goes, right? They ended up going a different direction, and a month later, I ended up accepting a job at a nonprofit that became my dream job. And I dropped out of college, and I never looked back. But it's so funny for me to think on my time in college, because I actually have a video that I took of me taking my last college final. I took this last college final and I knew I wasn't coming back. I knew my own personal journey was leading me elsewhere. So I went straight to the university library where I'd spent so much time working on my own passionate creative projects, and I took this video. Now maybe you can see why it wasn't a great fit for the academic world. My point is when I dropped out of college, so many people told me, especially those from older generations, that I was being short-sighted and I would come to regret not getting a degree. But fast forward to today, and I'm living my dream, man. I am a published author and writer living in San Francisco, making a living off my creativity, and I have the luxury of working anywhere and everywhere I can bring my laptop. I'm married to this gorgeous girl who also can work anywhere and everywhere she brings her laptop, because her job as a fashion blogger is to get sent free clothes and then get paid to post them on her Instagram. This is all possible because we are part of this generation that's, well, it's all possible partially because I'm #blessed, okay? But also because we're part of this generation that's created alternative routes to success. I believe we live in a digital day and age where all you need to succeed is Wi-Fi and a dream. In the words of Grammy Award-winning rapper Macklemore, we are a generation of kids choosing love over a desk. And that is the generation I'm proud to be a part of. That is what it means to be a millennial. But many times this is all ignored because we're misunderstood. And because we're misunderstood by older generations, they vilify us to some degree. Oh, they're narcissistic, they can't be managed, they're entitled, blah, 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 blah. Their frustration and their confusion comes from one solid fact. They are holding us to expectations created for a world that no longer exists. Our parents' and grandparents' generation had a very linear view of success, and it went just like this. Point A was graduate from college with a degree. Point B was get a good job with good benefits. And point C was retirement. You did it, you're done, you're 65, you earned your pension, go golf. That was success. But our generation has completely discarded and rewritten these rules. We are not the manufacturing line generation. We are the maker generation. And the path to success in our world is as varied as the people who live in it. We've got millennials making millions of dollars off their YouTube channels and Instagram profiles, and other millennials creating apps that are starting entirely new industries of business that people didn't even know could exist. This is all possible because we are the generation that is pushing the world forward. So yes, we may not get degrees. We may not stay in one job for very long. We may live at home with our parents longer while we figure out what we want to do with our lives. But this is all because we are custom building the life of our dreams, and we're confident enough to take untraditional routes to get there. So instead of labeling millennials as narcissists and complaining that we're always on our phones, just remember that we are just as invested in experiencing and helping the world as we are ourselves, and that what we're doing on our phones is not only changing our lives, but is shaping the future of our world. My name is Robbie Tripp. You may think I'm a narcissist, but really, I'm a millennial, and you're damn right I'm changing the world. Thank you.